This is how you share your games on PS4.
Thanks.
PlayStation.
One eternity later.
That one didn't age quite so well.
Hey, howdy, hey, awesome people of the internet, Wolfman4Dasher, and welcome to another 10 or more less list, and which as usual is not a ranking list, it's just 10 random things that I like to talk about to do with a particular topic. Now, I'll admit, I've done a lot of stupid things in the past on this channel. I've stripped, I've used suggestive pictures in my thumbnails, I've used suggestive mods in video games that I've played, and probably have done other things as well, and I know I've pissed off Russia a lot with all the block stuff that they keep blocking there, or the copyright stuff that I use, which I use under fair use, just to be clear. But I'm not talking about me. Today I'm talking about 10 stupid controversies because, you know, every time we hear something, sometimes it can be stupid, sometimes the reason is sound and all that, but today I'm going to talk about 10 randomly selected stupid controversies that I just want to talk about. Some of these have been talked about by other people, but this is just my take on it. So, let's get to it. So, first up, let's talk about Mass Effect. Now, as you all know, I've started my playthrough of Mass Effect, and one of the big things about the game series, you know, all the games, well, or most of them anyway, is that you get to have the option to have a romance option, and in each of the game you do have various different options, with the first two games sort of very much representing only heterosexual options, and then from 3 onwards it then sort of tries to establish that you can have same-sex options as well as heterosexual options if you so choose. With one exception in the first game, which is that you can romance Liara regardless of what gender of shepherd you play as. But I think on that basis it's only because Liara comes from an alien race who are largely have female-looking bodies, but can be classed as either male or female, depending on how you look at it. So yeah, it's got that going. Now, all that aside, the biggest controversy about this is how a certain news outlet known as Fox News tried to sort of depict it. So, or various other reasons. So in the first game, the cutscene that you get if you become intimate with one of your squad mates can be seen as has got some nudity, but it doesn't really show much. It just shows both characters, you know, completely naked, but doesn't show any boobs, vaginas, penises, and all that stuff. And I apologise to those of you that are still eating when you heard that. And it came from a few news outlets, but mainly Fox News, that they sort of saw that thing from the game and immediately jumped to the conclusion that the game is porn, is sexual and all that stuff, not really understanding that it's not that at all. And then eventually the person who actually said all these things, who is this guy who's the self-proclaimed psychology specialist, Cooper Lawrence, this person pretty much tried to sort of establish that this game is just this, and this, and then you got this game journalist called Jeff Neely, and don't worry, we will get to him later because he's one I don't particularly like, who's trying to explain that it's not just that in the game. And then eventually Lawrence withdrew all his statements, basically saying that he was actually told that the game was similar to pornography, and noted that he has seen episodes lost and more sexually explicit, and then made a book which apparently didn't do very well. So yeah, this is basically a simple case of don't judge a book by its cover, or in this case, don't judge a game by what you've seen. Just, you know, play the game and then draw your own conclusions on it. Don't just assume that because it's just one thing doesn't mean that it defines everything. So yeah. So moving on from that, although in a similar case, we have a lady called Anita Sarkeesian. Yes, those you gamers from the sort of from the noughties and the early 2010s will know this person very well. Anita Sarkeesian is pretty much an outspoken critic when it comes to video games, and honestly, most of the stuff that she says is, in my opinion, very inaccurate and doesn't really represent the overall gaming landscape and whatever. I mean, I've only seen some of her work, and I can definitely say she definitely hasn't got a clue about anything and it's not very clear as to whether she actually does play games or doesn't play games. But one thing I do know is that anytime she does do a sort of episode of a series Tropes versus Women in Video Games or any other video about video games, it's not her own footage that she uses. She uses other people's footage, and granted, I've done that myself. I've used other people's footage in some of my intros for these videos, but I otherwise try my best not to use my own footage where possible. But anyway, of all the things that she's said, and she's no ally to video games, that I will say. Of all the things she said, the one thing I'm kind of sort of thinking is very stupid is what she said about Hitman Absolution. Now, anyone who's played the Hitman games will know that there are multiple ways that you can do the missions that Agent 47 has been set out to do. And all the different ways you do it can be either rewarded or penalised depending on how you do it. So, for example, like that. One way to get penalised is killing people that are not your targets. And Anita specifically points out a point where you're in a changing room of what I would call a strip club. And there's these two ladies that apparently according to her you need to kill in order to progress, but the truth is you don't need to kill them. You can just sneak past them and not worry too much about that. And to me, that's just her sort of being very, very ignorant and not really understanding that you can simply just sneak past people you don't need to kill. You don't actually have to kill them to move on. So it's a bit of a stupid thing on her part, but honestly, she is a person that was once a thing, but nowadays has kind of sort of not been doing much in the way of gaming as far as I'm concerned, or not that I've heard of anyway. The very last thing I saw her in was when she was basically the poster girl for this gaming thing on Facebook, and then all the comments fell out. Everyone was just saying that they're not going to do it if she's involved, which after everything she's done and everything she's said, don't blame you. So yeah. Moving on from gaming, let's talk about a guy called Chris Pratt. You should all know who he is. He is an actor well known for being Star-Lord in Marvel, in the Guardians of the Galaxy and other MCU films, and also whatever the character's name is in the Jurassic World films, which I don't really remember that well. I'll be honest, and probably for the best, really. And the problem that most people have with him, and I've kind of picked up upon as well, is his voice acting. Now it's great when you get actors that can cast to do voices, because it usually guarantees that the film will be a success and get people on their seats and so forth. But the reason why I bring up Chris Pratt is because he is among several cast members, including Keegan-Michael Key and others, who are just sort of cast in all these animated films, and it's usually for like very bizarre and weird roles that would otherwise not fit him. So I've got a few here up on Google. Obviously, we all know the big one is the Super Mario Brothers films, in which he was cast to voice Mario, despite not being an Italian person, and honestly, Matthew Lillard made a good point earlier this year or a few months ago that most animated films should really use like veteran voice actors or professional voice actors instead of celebrities. But Chris Pratt did reasonably well. It's just not really. I wouldn't exactly see Mario as him. And likewise with the Garfield film. I mean, I've not seen the 2024 Garfield movie, and based on what I've heard from people, I'm not planning to. And yeah, he doesn't really come across as the person that would be the voice of Garfield. And he plays sliding door variations of the same confident, light-hearted guy in almost every major blockbuster franchise that he that he appears in. He pretty much completely shifts away from his comedy roots, taking on dark, serious, and brooding roles, such as this vengeance-driven Navy SEAL in the series The Terminal List. And then in the film Passengers, he broke his hero streak to play Jim Preston, a lonely space traveller who commits a morally ambiguous and controversial act by awakening a fellow passenger in that 2016 sci-fi film, which would be 10 years old this year, which is quite something. And obviously, and I think probably the only role that I think is fine for him to play, because no one actually knew how characters would actually be played, is in the Lego Movie. because in that film, all the characters are original and brand new and everything, so that's fine. You can pretty much get away with whoever you want in that, so that's okay. So basically what I'm trying to say is, Chris Pratt, you need to not be cast in anything and everything. Give others a chance, for goodness sake, because you got enough money as it is. You don't need more. So yeah. Now, Brokeback Mountain has had many controversies since it first came out, and obviously the big controversy is, in my opinion, around the sexuality of the characters. Now, keep in mind that this is meant to be one of those films that sort of tries to that came out during a period of time where LGBTQIA content, I guess, was only just becoming mainstream, but not mainstream as it is today. Like, obviously, the late Heath Ledger and the still alive Jake Gyllenhaal are both, as far as I know, heterosexual in real life. And in the film they play as two characters that kind of sort of have a mutual affection for each other, and then eventually gets to a point where they do kind of fall in love and sleep together and everything, despite each having their own respective lives outside of one another. I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've seen this, but the criticism is for various things. There's some legal issues. There's there was problems where it lost to Best Picture to another film called Crash, and then the character sexuality, which, to be honest, I mean, it's a film about two guys that fall in love. I mean, why should anyone be critical about that? It is what it is, basically. I don't know. Some people just like to make a big deal about things for the dumbest reasons, I swear. So yeah. Now, a channel called Cartoon Network, you'd expect all the shows that they have on it to be nothing but animated stuff. And I say animated because you have to bear in mind that there is a difference between calling something a cartoon and calling something animated. Animated usually means it's a thing that's very much literally animated, or 2D animation, or it's a cartoon but it has layers to it, whereas a cartoon is just a simple cartoon, doesn't have layers to it. So whenever I talk about anything that's animated or cartoon, I have to sort of double check to make sure that is one of those things, because when people talk about things, it's always good to fact check stuff, just to be sure. Now, putting that aside, Cartoon Network did this thing which I thought was very weird and very strange for them in the 2009, where they launched this programming block or something, depending on where you live. I'm just going by what it says here. Called the CN Real Programming Block, which was designed to compete with rival networks and had reality game shows, few scripted series that have, yeah. What idiots they were, because to be quite honest, when you have a channel called Cartoon Network, I'd expect nothing but cartoons or animated stuff on there, not live action stuff, because that's just stupid, that's just pointless and everything. Fortunately, it didn't last very long. It only lasted for a year, and most of those shows that they did sort of air during that time were not the most memorable or well received, as far as I'm concerned. And the thing is, although those existed, various shows on Cartoon Network have got away with some live action sequences in their shows. Like, for example, I've seen a few episodes of Codename Kids Next Door which have some live action sequences, such as in one where it's a number 2 and number 3 story, and number 2 is trying to sort of solve a mystery, and then there's this one bit where he's visualizing what happened, and it's using a live action person. And then in the sort of like feature length finale of the series, the more mature and adult Sector V are all getting interviewed, and it's all live action actors, but you can still very much tell that it's definitely the operatives that you know and love, despite being much older. So yeah, you can't. So yeah, the shows on Cartoon Network can get away with live action elements. It's just if you have a full on live action show, it's just not going to work on the channel because it's called Cartoon Network for a reason. So therefore, it should stay as a network for cartoons or animated stuff. So yeah. Now, next we're going to talk about The Interview. So The Interview was released in 2014, and it's one of those films that was produced and directed by Seth Rogen and Alvin Goldberg as part of their Point Grey Pictures brand of films and TV shows. They're also well known for making contributions to the Amazon shows Invincible and The Boys. And this particular film drew some controversy around just the whole premise of it. So the North Korean government threatened action against the United States if Sony released the film. Sony then delayed the film from its original release date to another release date, and reportedly re-edited the film to make it more acceptable to North Korea. But then the stupid controversy that comes from this is when this group called the Guardians of Peace, who are a cybercrime group allegedly connected to the North Korean government, they threatened terrorist attacks against theatres shown in the film. And you know, to call yourself a terrorist group, and being called the Guardians of Peace, that to me does not sound peaceful at all. That kind of sort of defeats the purpose of peace. If you're going to bomb theatres that end up showing the film, that's not peace. That's just not peace. So I don't know. That to me just comes across as very stupid. But it's just stupid. And the film did eventually get released to very mixed reviews, and personally I've seen it and it's alright. But anyway, moving on. So obviously we all know South Park is no stranger to controversy. It's had all sorts of controversies over the years, some being more stupid than others, but a lot of them are actually very sound. The controversy, I've had to be very picky about which controversy I wanted to talk about, and I decided to talk about a very recent one, which is basically their depiction of Donald Trump. Now in the show, Donald Trump has been depicted several times in the show. He's made a few cameos. There's a Canadian version of him on the show, and even during that Donald Trump's first term as president, the South Park crew decided to create Mr. Garrison as a Donald Trump-like person, sort of going for the president and everything, and were initially sort of not wanting him to basically take over a whole season, but then eventually because he became president, that then happened and so forth. And then when Donald Trump became president again, instead of having Mr. Garrison be president again, they decided to create their own Donald Trump, and this Donald Trump is very similar, or in fact the same as their depiction of Saddam Hussein. Basically walking and talking like a Canadian with a big mouth flowing up and down and everything. And basically it's kind of a rehash of a previous storyline because this Donald Trump is in love with South Park's depiction of the Christian devil. And then there's like this big story that in seasons 27 and 28 in which the devil's going to have a baby, and Donald Trump's doing anything he can to try and stop the baby, even falling in love with his vice president. And the controversy is basically the White House's response to this, where they're basically sort of making out that South Park has never been that popular, and it sort of demonstrates and shows, and the statement alone, it demonstrates and shows that any kind of government is very much out of touch with what's going on in the modern world. Because for too long a lot of us have seen so many news reports and everything of politicians basically making out this and this, but it's very clearly something that they're just so out of touch with. And South Park has always been popular. They revel with the controversy. Trey Parker and Matt Stone revel on. It's controversy that's led to the success of the show, just like how GTA's various controversies has led to the success of that franchise. So franchise. And to this day, people still watch South Park. You know, it may be stupid, it may be dumb, but at least they hit on the big key points. And Trey Parker Matt Stone did make it clear that if the Trump administration doesn't like the show, then they need to get out of pop culture, because that they like to make fun of pop culture. So get the president out of pop culture, and they'll stop doing it. So yeah. So now we move on to Doctor Who. Now, Doctor Who has had a lot of controversy over the years as well. It has had a few cancellations, and quite recently had another cancellation, or rather a hiatus, as the BBC put it. They put it to tender. Sorry, excuse me. Still a bit of a cold, as you may have tell. But when it was still its revival era, series 2 had one episode in which a viewer of Blue Peter can submit a monster idea to the showrunners to basically become an actual monster in the show. And the episode in question that ended up having a monster in the show, that monster in the show, was called Loving Monsters. This was regarded as one of those episodes in which it's as they put it, a Doctor Light episode, in which the Doctor and the companion and his or her companion don't play a major role in the show, but you can otherwise feel their presence. And it's all about this group of people that become fanatics of the Doctor and his companions, and then they end up becoming this little community, sort of going about their day. And then this one guy comes about, and it basically becomes the main villain. And the character in question is played by Peter Kay. And what's interesting is that the monster that was announced as the winner on Blue Peter was meant to be very different to what we got on the show, but because of budget limitations and everything, he ended up becoming what he was on the show. And the controversy around this is just that the episode was just not very good. It just sucked. It was not very good, and it pretty much divided people. And ultimately, it became a clear example of why certain BBC shows should not collaborate with each other, because of the differences and so forth, and just the basis that you just need to sort of be careful when you're trying to adapt a monster and so forth. And to be honest, with the way the sort of guy that made this monster talked about, because he did actually do a video later on in life on YouTube, which I did watch before doing this video. He did say that the monster was meant to be very different to how it was depicted on the show. And hearing that, I think it would have probably been better if it was an animated episode, but anyhow, it is what it is. So yeah, moving on from that, we're now back to talking about Geoff Neely, as I talk about when he became the Dorito Pope. So during a period of time where this journalist was sort of promoting Halo. Halo did a sort of cross promotion with Mountain Dew and Doritos, and the Dorito Pope is the nickname given to Geoff Neely, which followed an interview between him and LevelSave.com in October 2012. It's had a quite excessive amount of product placement for Mountain Dew and Doritos, which led to large amounts of criticism and led it to becoming a notorious example criticising the state of gaming journalism at the time, because for a lot of gaming journalists at that point were sort of quote unquote sleeping with games, sort of being paid and bribed to give out positive reviews and everything. And it was basically, and I've never been a fan of Geoff Neely. Everything he's done, all the stuff he does is I've just not been that keen on him. He may be an outspoken critic for gamers and everything, but I just don't like the way he goes about it. Like, I don't like his Game Awards shows. I don't like his views. And after seeing that Doritos and Mountain Dew thing, I kind of lost all respect for him, especially after the way he treated another outspoken gaming critic that I do actually follow, called Angry Joe, who I actually do admire and do think he does talk very highly of the gaming community at large. And yeah, it's just it's just a simple case of GF Knightley making a fool of himself, and yeah, we'll gloss over that and move on. So the final stupid controversy I want to talk about is one that's regarding anime. Now, anytime people see anime, there's obviously going to be some kind of fan service that they throw in for good measure, and usually fan service comes in the form of characters wearing quote unquote skimpy outfits, or having wardrobe malfunctions and all that other stuff. It's basically a case of if the fans really like this character, then the fans are going to get the character in a way that they like, whether they take their clothes off or whether they're wearing just weird outfits. And Fairy Tail is one of those anime series that does this a lot. Now, I have previously talked about Grey Buster and the fact that he does spend much of the series not wearing much, which is a simple case of fan service. But you know, to be fair, he is kind of hot, especially with all these sort of abs and muscles he's got. The same can be said for Natsu, who doesn't take his clothes off as much, but the few times he does, it's usually a case of when his jacket is sort of caught on fire, so it's just him shirtless, but he's still wearing his scarf. Then you got Lucy Hartfilia, who most of the show is wearing very skimpy outfits, but has those moments where she does strip off and everything. But obviously, because the show is because the show is usually sort of 12, 15 or whatever, she doesn't really show too much of her breasts and all that. And then there's like some other characters that wear sort of crazy skimpy outfits as well. And I think there was also one time where Urza actually quite literally stripped completely, without realising and all that. So yeah. To be fair, all the characters in the show are quite attractive, with the exception of an obvious few. Other shows have kind of fallen suit with this, because I know it's also a thing in Naruto and My Hero Academia, which are both quite similar in cases. So you know, characters as beloved as they are, some people find them very attractive and want to see them not wear much and all that. So it's just a case of it is what it is. Out of all this controversies I've talked about today, the Fairy Tail thing I don't think is a stupid controversy. I just think it's bizarre that people just don't like how excessive the fan service is. And if you're not a fan, then watch something else, because the fan service exists just to give us characters, you know, what not wearing much and so forth. Then it just turns us on and everything. So you know, so yeah. Anyway. So that's it for this video. That's all the stupid controversies I wanted to talk about. Some are more stupid than others, some are more sound than others, but that's just what I think about it. Fire off the comments below. Let me know what you think about all these different controversies, and if you have your own views on stupid controversies, because I'd love to hear what you think about certain things. And just to be clear, even though I have talked a lot about politics in this video, this is not a political channel. I only very rarely talk about politics. And the few times I do talk about politics, I just feel it's necessary to talk about and so forth, so yeah. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you can, please. If you're new to the channel, I do vlogs like these every Thursday, usually a completely random topic, which requests are welcome for. Fire off in the comments or on my socials if you want to suggest ideas for me to talk about. Mondays and Tuesdays I do gameplay series videos, which are like part of a series of videos for a long game playing through, alternating between 4 different games, including one of them being Mass Effect. Every Wednesday I do a Let's Play of a completely random game, requests are welcome for those as well. And then rest of the week I do reviews, hauls, rants on life, videos with friends, gameplay compilations, shorts and loads more, depending on what things I'm doing, not necessarily every single week for all those things. So yeah, see you in the next one. Peace to you all. And remember to do your research before saying these weird, crazy, random, stupid things. And remember to give things a chance before saying all these weird, crazy, random, stupid things. And as political as this is going to sound, don't let anybody boss you around. Do not let anybody tell you what to do, and do not let anybody make out that they're better than you, because you are the only one that can sort of make that judgment yourself. Because if you think you're better than anybody else, then that's fair for you to judge as well. So yeah, And just to reassure you all, I know I have been shirtless a lot recently. It's just because we've been having some very hot weather here in the UK, so I'm just trying to cool off and everything. And that's the only reason why I'm shirtless. So yeah, alright. Doodles.